Today we're going to demonstrate a little bit about how our wax melter works. We make some real nice pretty blocks of wax that you can see over there by the door. The system that we use doesn't use any water at all. It's just a system that uses some heating elements in the ceiling of this wax melter and also some hot water coils that run in the wall of this old remodeled milk cooler. We'll show you how that works in just a minute, but we're in the middle of a melting process right now, and what we're going to do, this is our barrel that we put our melter honey in. This is the honey that's gone through the melting wax process, and we try to recover it before it's been darkened too greatly. The wax that you see accumulated here is the cap on that melter honey, and what it does is it catches all of the slum gum that might end up with that honey. Now if you watch what I do, this is cooled from the night before. I'm going to pull this out and throw this whole plug right into the wax melter as we continue another batch of melted wax. Now that's going to be melted along with this next batch, and if you look down in the drum you can see that the melter honey itself is staying relatively clean. What we're going to do now is this capping wax that we're working with here is the tail end of this season's capping wax. We have a Cowan system, and our Cowan spinner does a really good job of getting the cappings fairly dry. They're almost like damp sawdust. What our wax melter will do is take this capping wax, melt it into those nice yellow blocks, and it'll separate out the honey So that wax has the scrapings from the bottom bars and the top bars, burr comb, things like that. This side of the wax melter is a little bit of what we were melting last night. What's left behind, put into these drums, this is called slum gum. This is basically what's left over after you've melted wax. It's the cocoons and any debris that might be in the wax, the propolis, things that aren't wax and aren't necessarily honey either. The way the wax melter is constructed, we have about an 8-inch basket with 3/16-inch holes. And all the wax, as you saw, accumulates on the top there. And as it melts, the slum gum is left behind. It's very easy to handle. Cleans off real easy. Just a minimal amount of effort. We like to set the heater that controls the coils that heat the bottom of the tank where the honey and wax accumulate initially at 150 or below. And the reason that we like to do that is so that the honey's not damaged. We've run quite a little bit of honey out while the first batch was mixing, and now that the honey, pour that into the melter barrel. See, it's got a dark color, but not too dark. This honey can be blended with other honey and used for baking grade honey. Could be sold to someone who's making, for example, a good southern barbecue sauce. That's where a lot of ours goes. Got a good caramel flavor to it. As long as you're pulling the honey off, the wax can accumulate and be kept warm in the bottom of the tank without any damage to it. Again, we feel the key is to keep the temperature very near 150 degrees. Wax won't get too brittle during the regular summer process. It takes us about 2 days worth of extracting to completely fill this. What we'll do at 5 o'clock or so in the evening when we wash up we'll close it, turn it on. About 10 o'clock in the evening, I'll come out and draw out a great deal of the honey that's accumulated, and then it'll cook all night long. And in the morning, come on out, draw out the rest of the wax, which will be, or honey, which will be slightly darker than the first stuff, as it's cooked all night, and then we'll run the wax out. We'll take a look at running the wax out in just a minute. But again, the process we're running right now, this wax is actually accumulating and melting while we're going to be taking out the rest of the wax that's in there from last night's melting. We're back out the next morning now. The wax melter has melted all night long. See, the heating coils are still red hot. About 200 degrees in here, so we keep the air temperature. It's melted all the wax down to just leaving a layer of slum gum now. We'll clean this out at the end. Cover down, allow the heat to stay in there, keep the wax nice and warm. I've warmed this valve a little earlier with a torch. Make sure it's nice and warm so the wax doesn't cool. Now this honey's cooked all night long, slightly darker than it was the honey we pulled out the other day because it's been in there a little bit longer. Again, if you're real concerned about the honey not being too darkened, if you don't have an outlet for darker melter honey, then my recommendation is to stay on top of this thing and pull the honey out on a regular basis. Don't let it in there for very long, but come on out every, say, 3 hours or so and run the honey out till you come down to wax. You can see that there's a little bit of slum gum coming out along with the honey and wax. I'm just going to give that honey a chance to accumulate next to the valve. Okay, now this little bit of wax and slum gum that's accumulated with that honey, I'm not afraid to pour that right into this drum. Because again, if you remember the plug we looked at the other day, it's all going to accumulate on the surface. And when we remove that frozen plug, that congealed plug, all of that will come out together and leave the drum of honey nice and clean. Now we're ready to start running the wax out. All of the slum gum is contained in the basket above. Very little actually comes through the basket, and what little there is, you just saw come out in the honey. So now what we're pulling out is pure beeswax. And again, it's right at or just slightly over 150 degrees. Because there will be real tiny particles possibly in there, we like to let these buckets set for a few moments before we pour them in the molds. Let's carry them over to the molds now. I'm careful as I pour this to watch for the accumulated honey that'll be in the bottom of the bucket underneath the wax. And I don't pour down any more than this. What's left in there now to keep this wax clean can be poured right into here. And again, that's all going to accumulate on the surface of the honey and congeal. Okay, so you can see we've let it sit for just a moment. We pour the wax Beautiful off. Cakes with very little, if any, particulate matter at all in the bottom. These ought to bring you the highest dollar when you're selling them on the market. Be a real pleasing contribution to anybody who's making their own candles. The last thing we like to do is keep these covered just with some light cardboard. This will keep any flies, hornets, or loose honeybees from dropping into the wax. on the surface. And the other thing that it does, it'll help that surface to cool evenly so that you won't get a whole lot of cracking. Just makes the wax look a lot nicer to the customer if they're nice, solid, clean blocks that don't have a lot of cracking. Let's take a look now at these blocks. This is what you're going to get with this process. Look at the bottom, it's nice and clean, not a lot of impurities in it. This is what you can expect with this type of a process. Again, no water used, no filtering, 100% pure, raw beeswax, just like our honey. Well, one final cleaning of the tank. We turn our heat down, back to off. The tank is done until the next time we fill it. And again, just like the other day, just a few minutes to clean the slum gum out. And even this, believe it or not, is a product that, with the right equipment, namely a press, you can still recover wax from. And there are facilities in Florida as well as out west that are glad to get your propolis, to get your slum gum, try to recover a little bit of wax for you and for them. No need to throw anything away along the process. There we go, job done. Let's go get a cup of coffee.